Okay, so in my attempt to make more content for YouTube, what I'm going to try to do is record more of my podcasts in video format. I'm working on a guest list. I've reached out to a handful of guests, and I'm having an issue getting on the same page schedule wise with some guests that I'm going to hopefully be able to interview at some point in time through Zoom and then upload the video of that to here on YouTube. But in the meantime, when I can remember to do it, and when I have the wherewithal to do it, I will try to video record the podcast in which it is just me. Upload those to YouTube and give you another avenue through which to listen to those. So that's what we're going to do here. This is my cheapo $100 podcast mic from Amazon. I've got my laptop in front of me. I've got my notes. I've got my recording software up. So we're going to proceed with recording podcast episode number 185 of the Second Half Podcast. And this is all I do. I just record it right here the way you're going to see it right now. So without further ado, let me get into this. Never forget to wet your whistle beforehand. Everybody likes a wet whistle. Happy Friday, everybody. It is Friday, January 20th, 2023. This is the Second Half Podcast. I'm Tom Powell, and as always, if you're listening to this, that means you made it through another week and margaritas are in order. Now, this is the part of the show where I usually give you guys a reason to go get margaritas, and I got nothing this week. My fucking brain is mush. I got so many fucking things going on at one point in time that I just go get fucking margaritas, man. You don't need a goddamn reason to go get margaritas, so just go get some fucking margaritas, okay? I got so many fucking irons in the fire, it's ridiculous, right? I'm recording this on Thursday, early morning. It's about 12:21 p.m. here, the Thursday before this podcast episode airs. Waiting for my settlement to come through so I can reconcile this week's payroll, get my driver paid. I've got a truck that's in the shop. We've racked up $3,800 worth of repairs. I was talking to the mechanic this morning. We got just a few more things to go, so I'm dealing with that. Trying to get my son's room put together. I got painters on the schedule. I've got boxes showing up to the house every day like it was fucking Christmas season. I mean, I'm not shitting you. There's a box for everything. Hey, look, his headboard showed up. Hey, look, his dresser showed up. Hey, look, his nightstand showed up. Hey, look, his desk showed up. Shit just keeps showing up to the house. The house is a fucking disaster. I got some of his shit kind of hidden away here in my office just so it's out of the way. My living room is just taken over by shit. Not to mention the fact that my wife bought me a 36-inch Blackstone griddle, and that's been delivered, and that's sitting in a box in my living room. And it's like, I can't even get all the shit together that we're getting for my son. I don't have time to start fucking with that Blackstone. I want that Blackstone put together, and I want to try fucking with it, but I don't got the time for it right now. You know what I'm saying? So I got a whole ass Blackstone sitting in a box in my living room, on top of a whole ass dresser sitting in my living room, on top of a whole ass headboard sitting in my living room, on top of boxes for all of that, plus more things sitting in the living room. I have 2 packages on the kitchen table that have yet to even be opened. So it's like fucking chaos over here at the moment. So yeah, I don't know why you should go out and get margaritas. I just know that you should. Just fucking go get some. Get yourself a few pitchers. I suggest multiple frozen and strawberry. Of course, if you want to round your edges in another way, you're not going to get any hate from me on my channel. As a matter of fact, I'll join you. Yeah, that's good. Nice. I wonder how many people are going to listen to the audio version of this podcast while watching the video version, because I'm recording this for YouTube. I'm hoping that this takes. I'm hoping that this video actually does upload to YouTube. But I got to imagine that the voice sounds better coming through the microphone, through the recording system, than it will on what my phone picks up for YouTube, because that's what I'm recording myself on for YouTube, is my iPhone. So let me know how you wind up consuming this particular episode. All right. Before we get too much further along, let me do the housekeeping that I do every week. For people that are finding me for the first time, I like to give you guys a couple of notes as to what to expect with this particular podcast. First of all, this is an amateur podcast. I mean, there is nothing professional about this operation in any way, shape, or form. I am doing this podcast in my home office, which is a refurbished bedroom. I've got a fan in the window so I don't hotbox my office. I'm doing it on a laptop and with a mic that I got off of Amazon. There's no producer, there's no editor, there's no soundproof room. It's not meant to be all professional and finished and polished. It's meant to be as if you and I were sitting on the deck shooting the shit, or maybe sitting here in the office shooting the shit. So if you hear some background noises, my dogs, the fan, I burp, whatever the case may be, just roll with it, okay? I don't need to hear that you're upset that you heard background noise. I already don't give a fuck, okay? Secondly, if you're finding me for the very first time, you probably don't know about my website. There's a lot more information about me over there if you're interested. That website would be oldhippiemedia.com. That's oldhippiemedia.com, HIPPIE. There you're going to find my blog. You're going to find links on where you can follow me on all of the various social media accounts. You're going to find a link to my merch store. I have over 400 items to choose from. You're going to find a link on where you can buy one of my first 2 self-published books. They are entitled A Grateful Life, the life story of a husband, father, and taco-loving deadhead, and Dearest Renee, Letters from the Coronavirus War of 2020. They are available in paperback and ebook formats. You're going to find a link on where you can listen to me on other podcasts. You're going to find a link on where you can book me on Cameo. And you're going to find a link on where you can subscribe to my Patreon subscription service. This podcast that you're listening to is on Spotify and is free and airs every Friday. I also host another podcast entitled Taco Tuesdays with Tom, which airs every other Tuesday over on my Patreon channel, and that is $4.20 a month. If you know, you know. All right. Without further ado, let's get into the meat of the podcast, because I don't like turning this into a big advertisement for me. You heard the website. You heard what I have to offer. Go check it out. Now we're going to get into the NFL notes. This is a political podcast, but during the NFL season, before we get into the political news, we discuss the NFL, and we're into the playoffs here, so we got to get this. We got to get this on record. First, I told you last week that I would compile how I did in my preseason picks, and here's how I did. In the AFC, I accurately picked 3 of the 4 division winners. I picked the Bills, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. I missed on the Colts. The Jaguars wound up winning the AFC South. In the NFC, I accurately picked 50% of the division winners, 2 of the 4. I picked the Eagles and the Buccaneers. I missed on the Packers and the Rams. For the AFC, I picked the Titans, the Raiders, and the Chargers to be wild card teams. Only the Chargers wound up making it to the playoffs. The other 2 teams did not, unfortunately. In the NFC, I picked the 49ers, the Vikings, and the Panthers. Now, the Panthers didn't make the playoffs, and the 49ers and Vikings won their respective divisions, but that's how I picked. That was 3 of the 4 division winners in the AFC, 2 of the 4 division winners in the NFC. I missed big with a couple of them. I nailed a few others. It's a bit of a mixed bag in my preseason picks. Now, as far as last week goes, I went 5-1 last week. The only note of substance that I can come up with from the games of last week would have to be that Buccaneers Cowboys game. Man, let me tell you something. The first note that I would take away from that is the Cowboys kicker. Whew, holy shit. This guy becomes the first kicker in NFL history to miss 4 extra points in a game. Like, I'm surprised that the Cowboys gave this dude a ride home after the game, let alone made an announcement this week that they're sticking with this dude. They're sticking with this dude. Okay, so the Cowboys are going up to San Francisco. Let's assume for a moment that this guy gets an opportunity to kick an extra point in San Francisco. What do the Cowboys do the first time this guy shoinks one left or right of the goalpost? You keep trotting him out there? I mean, good luck with that. It's a bold move, Cotton. Bold move. And, of course, the other note from that game that's of significance is Tom Brady gets knocked out in the first round. God damn. Tom Brady gave up his entire fucking family for this? You got knocked out in the first round by the fucking Cowboys? Okay. Listen, I said that I believe that Tom Brady was a little weak-kneed because he's got himself a new girlfriend. And I don't know if you saw that girlfriend, but she looks like she just stepped off the cover of a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, magazine edition, whatever. The dude's been married for a long time, right? And by all accounts, been faithful. Never heard anything about Tom Brady cheating, so let's make sure that everybody understands that. He stayed faithful, allegedly, to his wife until they were divorced. And then, like people do, he moved on with his life. And he found himself a new girl. But I'm going to tell you something. You're faithful to the same woman for that that long period of time, that amount of time, and then all of a sudden that's over and you find yourself on the market. I don't care who you land. You're doing a lot of fucking. You know what I mean? You are fucking. Okay, your new gal is getting dick in bulk. If I could quote Will Ferrell. And if you're Tom Brady and you find yourself now with a fucking swimsuit supermodel, you are fucking. You understand what I'm saying? Tom Brady was weak in the knees. She sucked the football right out of him. And Tom, if you're listening, and I don't think that you are, but if somebody in Tom Brady's orbit happens to hear this and wants to play it for him, dog, just hang it up. Just hang it up, man. Take your millions of dollars, your new girlfriend, fly off to an island somewhere and fuck until you die. Go enjoy your life. This is not worth it, homie. It's not worth it. It's over. Anyway, let's get on with this week's picks. This week I will take the Chiefs over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their miraculous run comes to an end in Kansas City. I'm going to take the Eagles over the Giants. We are now going to see what I believe to be quite possibly the best team in the NFC right now get to play, and that's the Eagles. I'm going to take the Bills to beat the Bengals in Buffalo. That's one of those games I could see going either way. I could see Joe Burrow going up there and going off. I could see Joe Burrow going up there and throwing 6 picks. I'm going to take the Bills in that game. And the Cowboys' run comes to an end in San Francisco this week. The San Francisco 49ers will beat the Dallas Cowboys. So there you go. My picks this week are the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bills, and the 49ers. Okay? Don't go bet money with that, because, yeah, you know what I mean? All right, now on to the political news. What do we got to discuss this week? First, let's discuss the fact that the Republicans want to act on H.R. 25 now that they have the majority in the House. So what is it? It's being referred to as the Fair Tax Act of 2023. It was originally filed in 2021, but the Republicans didn't have any power then. Now they do. They have the majority, and they want to bring it back up for consideration. I'm going to read you the bill. The Republicans do like to keep bills extraordinarily simple, and this is an example of one. It is a single page, and the bill reads as follows. This bill imposes a national sales tax on the use or consumption in the United States of taxable property or services in lieu of the current income taxes, payroll taxes, and estate and gift taxes. The rate of this sales tax will be 23% in 2025, with adjustments to the rate in subsequent years. There are exemptions from the tax for used and intangible property, for property or services purchased for business, export, or investment purposes, and for state government functions. Under the bill, family members who are lawful U.S. residents receive a monthly sales tax rebate, the family consumption allowance, based upon criteria related to family size and poverty guidelines. These states have the accountability, responsibility, my apologies, for administering, collecting, and remitting the sales tax to the Treasury. Tax revenue are to be allocated among 1, the general revenue, 2, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, 3, the Disability Insurance Trust Fund, 4, the Hospital Insurance Trust Fund, and 5, the Federal Supplemental Medical Insurance Trust Fund. No funding is authorized for the operations of the Internal Revenue Service after fiscal year 2027. There's one more line to this bill. But let's first go back over what this bill just said to you. So, go back up to the top. This bill imposes a national sales tax on the use of consumption in the United States of taxable property or services in lieu of the current income taxes, payroll taxes, and estate taxes, as well as gift taxes. So, they want to do away with estate taxes, gift taxes, payroll taxes, and income taxes. So that's a whole lot of taxes going away from your paycheck. You no longer have income taxes if this bill becomes law. But what you have in replace of that is a national sales tax on everything you buy. You go buy a car, you get this sales tax on top of that car. You go buy a house, you get this sales tax on top of that house. You go buy clothes, you get this sales tax on top of those clothes. You go buy this, that, or the other, you get this sales tax on top of that. The next line says, the rate of sales tax will be 23% in 2025, with adjustments to the rate in subsequent years. Of course, as the Republicans are known to do, they don't give us the details as to what those adjustments would be and in what subsequent years. So we have to operate under the assumption that this is a permanent 23% sales tax on everything we buy. So right off the bat, let me tell you how this is a problem with just those two lines. Poor people don't pay income tax. When your earnings are below a certain level, you don't pay any income tax. So they're not saving anything by seeing their income tax go away. They're certainly not seeing any savings by the estate tax going away because they got no fucking money. They're poor. So they're not going to see their taxes go down as a result of doing away with the income tax, but they will see their taxes go up as a result of the 23% sales tax. This is a tax hike on the poor. There are exemptions for tax from the tax for used and intangible properties, for property or services purchased for business, export, or investment purposes, and for state governmental functions. So whatever the state buys, they don't have to pay any taxes for it. If you own a business and you're purchasing something for the business, you don't pay any taxes for it. So I own a trucking company. I go buy a semi, which is what I do. I buy semis. I go buy a semi for use in my company, and I don't have to pay taxes on it. You go buy a car, you got to pay taxes on it. Additionally, if I want to take my money and invest it because I got that much of it left over that I can actually invest some money, I don't pay taxes on that either. Once again, this is a tax hike on the poor. It talks about how, under the bill, family members who are lawful U.S. citizens receive a monthly sales tax rebate based upon criteria related to family size and poverty guidelines. Doesn't talk about what those guidelines are. You got to be a little more specific. That's why bills are long, Republicans, because you can't get to the meat of the details in a one-page bill. You're asking us to make this a law and trust that you're going to do the right thing down the line. Doesn't fucking work that way. You got to tell us what those guidelines are. But then you get all the way down to the end of this thing. And what did I say was the last line that I actually read to you? No funding is authorized for the operations of the Internal Revenue Service after fiscal year 2027. So, they starve and kill off the Internal Revenue Service after 2027. But everything that I just mentioned to you, everything that they wrote into this bill, is unconstitutional. Why? Well, the 16th Amendment to the Constitution is what authorizes an income tax. If you want to do away with the income tax, you can't just write a law. You have to have a constitutional amendment. You have to change the Constitution to do away with income taxes. And the Republicans know this. They're just counting on the fact that you don't know it. And the last line in this bill tells you that the Republicans know what they're trying to do is unconstitutional. Because the last line of this bill reads as follows. Finally, the bill terminates the national sales tax if the 16th Amendment to the Constitution authorizing an income tax is not repealed within 7 years after the enactment of this bill. They know that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen. So what they're doing is they're passing a law to kill off the IRS and do away with the agency that's responsible for collecting the constitutionally authorized income taxes, and then saying, but if we don't do away with the actual amendment in 7 years, we're going to do away with that sales tax too. But it doesn't bring back the fucking the other taxes, the department that collects those taxes. So there's no mechanism by which to collect any of the taxes. How the fuck are we going to run the government? Because at that point in time, 7 years after this bill gets enacted, and the 16th Amendment isn't repealed, what happens? We have an income tax, but we'd have nobody that can collect it. We don't have to collect any death taxes. We don't have to collect any estate taxes. There is no way to collect the payroll taxes, and this sales tax goes away. Not to mention the fact that even if the 16th Amendment was repealed and this became a permanent law of the land, who's going to collect the fucking taxes if there's no IRS? You think we're going to get the Republicans to agree to allow any other agency of the government to collect the taxes for us? Absolutely not. How the fuck do they propose that we fund the government? I mean, keep in mind, these are the same people that insist that we spend more on defense every year in and year out. We're spending almost $900 billion on defense alone. Who's going to collect the fucking money? Where's it going to fucking come from? The Republican Party is trying to starve the nation from within. By the letter of this bill, by the wording of this bill, you cannot collect taxes to fund the government. You can't do it. What the fuck are these people thinking? They do it every time. They tell their fucking people government is the problem. It's corrupt. It doesn't work properly. It doesn't work for you. They say all of the things, right? Then what happens? They get elected on that bullshit. They go to Washington and they prove that it's broken by being the ones who break it. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Here, listen. As I said earlier, there's a silver lining to this cloud, okay? Democrats control the Senate. Democrats have the White House. Anything like this that even manages to get out of the House, which, keep in mind, they still got to get 218 people out of the 222 majority that they have to agree to this. But let's say they cobble together 218. It's dead on arrival in the Senate. It's not going anywhere. And we got the Senate until the next presidential election. Even if it snuck past the Senate, Joe Biden would veto that shit in 2 seconds. And nobody has a veto-proof majority in either chamber. So, don't worry about this actually becoming law in the next 2 years, but pay attention to what it is they're doing. If they had the House, the Senate, and the White House, this is what they would be pushing through. This is what their goal is. Starve the country from the inside out. I don't understand how anybody could vote for these fucks, man. Seriously. It is fucking stunning to me. Then again, we have people that voted for Trump, for fuck's sake. Which is what the next fucking story's about here. We got to discuss Trump and his rape case deposition. I mean, first of all, right there, doesn't that just kind of fucking speak volumes? That we're talking about a former president who's on trial for fucking rape. Anyway, I am now going to read to you from Insider. Former President Donald Trump claimed that E. Jean Carroll, who has accused him of sexual assault, said that, quote, rape was sexy and, quote, indicated that she loved it, end quote, when he was deposed in connection to her defamation lawsuit in October. Yeah, that is the former president of the United States of America, Donald Trump, using the she loved it defense to try and get out of raping somebody. Judge Lewis Kaplan unsealed a portion of Trump's deposition on Friday after his lawyers lost a bid to keep them private. This was, of course, last Friday. Carroll, the longtime advice columnist for Elle magazine, is suing Trump for defamation after he said she made up a rape allegation about him to sell her memoir. He denies having had any sexual contact with her. In the October deposition, Trump misrepresented comments Carroll made about the allegation in an interview with CNN's Anderson Cooper. That's shocking, isn't it? Quote, she actually indicated that she loved it, okay? She loved it until the commercial break, in fact. I think she said it was sexy, didn't she? She said it was very sexy to be raped, Trump said. What? What? Oh my God. Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, then asked the former president, quote, so, sir, I just want to confirm, it's your testimony that E. Jean Carroll said that she loved being sexually assaulted by you, end quote. He responded, well, based on her interview with Anderson Cooper, I believe that's what took place. Dude, Trump repeated the claim that Carroll described rape as sexy several times and suggested that Cooper was in a panic over her comments, so he called for a commercial break. In the 2019 interview, Carroll told Cooper that she did not like to use the word rape because, quote, it carries so many sexual connotations, and that, quote, most people think of rape as being sexy. Think of it as fantasies. So, as usual, Trump has a hard time understanding the English language and twists somebody's words to fit his narrative. By comparison, she said that her encounter with the former president, quote, was not sexual. It just hurt, end quote. Carroll accused Trump of raping her in an article for New York Magazine in 2019. She claimed he assaulted her in a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, a luxury Fifth Avenue department store in the mid-1990s. 1900s. That's like my kids talking there. Trump strongly denied the claim, and in response, Carroll sued him for defamation, claiming that his calling her a liar negatively impacted her reputation and career. Donald Trump's often combative deposition, carried out on October 19th, 2022, at Mar-a-Lago, the former president called Carroll's lawyer a, quote, political operative, end quote, and a, quote, disgrace, and threatened to sue her. Folks, I have absolutely zero doubt that Donald Trump raped this woman in that dressing room. Zero doubt. And I think that if Donald Trump could have a moment of pure truth on the stand, if he could be honest and reveal what's inside of him on the stand, he would have his "you can't handle the truth" moment. I think he's itching to tell people, you're goddamn right, I fucked her, and she loved every fucking minute of it. I think he's itching to tell people that, and he is intimating that in his testimony. This man is a menace to society. He's a danger to people in general, and he needs to be locked up for the betterment of our species as a whole. There's just no other way of putting it. Some people, suffice it to say, just shouldn't be roaming free. And while there are some on the Democratic side of the aisle that shouldn't roam free, there seem to be a fuck ton on the Republican side of the aisle in 2023. Take this next story, for example. I'm going to read to you from AP News now. I'm not even going to give you an intro into this because this one is a fucking wild story. Buckle the fuck up. A 39-year-old felon who overwhelmingly lost a bid for the New Mexico State House as a Republican paid for 4 men to shoot at Democratic lawmakers' homes in recent months, including one house where a 10-year-old girl was asleep, police said. Yeah, you read that right. A failed Republican lawmaker, failed Republican candidate, paid men to shoot up the homes of Democrats. But remember, it's the Democrats that are the crazy violent ones. The case against Solomon Pena, who has posted photos of himself online with Donald Trump campaign material, is one of dozens across the United States where people have threatened and in some cases attempted to carry out violence against members of Congress, school board members, and other election officials. In Kansas, a trial began this week for a man who prosecution say threatened to kill a congressman. Officials accused Pena of paying $500 to 4 men to shoot the homes of Democratic lawmakers. He went along for the final drive-by, his gun jamming as bullets ripped into the bedroom of a girl, police said. The criminal complaint against the self-proclaimed, quote, MAGA king, describes how anger over his landslide defeat in November led to the attacks at the homes of 4 Democratic lawmakers in New Mexico's largest city. A SWAT team arrested him Monday afternoon, police said. Pena spent 9 years behind bars after his arrest in April 2007 for stealing electronics and other goods from several retail stores as part of what authorities described as a burglary crew. Of course this fucking asshole wound up as a Republican nominee for office. Jesus Christ. He was released from prison in March of 2016 and had his voting rights restored after completing 5 years of probation in April of 2021. Pena ran unsuccessfully in November against incumbent state rep Miguel P. Garcia, the longtime Democratic representing House District 14 in South Valley. Pena got 26% of the vote. Pena, whose criminal past came up during the campaign, repeatedly made baseless claims that the election was rigged against him. Quote, "I dissent. I am the MAGA king," he posted the day after the election. I told you, every one of these fucks is going to claim every election they ever lose moving forward is rigged. That's the new norm for a generation in this country. On November 15th, he posted an image of himself in a Make America Great Again hoodie saying, quote, "Trump just announced for 2024. I stand with him. I never conceded my HD 14 race. Now researching my options," end quote. Pena has an initial court appearance Wednesday on charges including multiple counts of shooting at a home and shooting from a motor vehicle, aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, conspiracy, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. No one was wounded in the drive-by shootings, thankfully. The New Mexico Republican Party said that, quote, "If Pena is found guilty, he must be prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Pena's candidacy was challenged in state district court, with his opposition saying he wasn't eligible to seek office because he had not been pardoned by the governor, nor did he request to be pardoned. The court sided with Pena, finding that a state law that prohibits a felon from holding public office was unconstitutional. An appeal is pending. Police said Pena had previously shown up uninvited at the homes of 2 elected officials with what he claimed were documents proving that he had won the race. There was no evidence of widespread voter fraud or any irregularity involving enough votes to change the result in New Mexico in 2020 or 2022. The criminal complaint says that Pena hired a father and son with criminal histories of their own, as well as 2 brothers whom authorities have yet to identify. In one of their text messages, Pena complained that officials certifying the election in November, quote, "sold us out to the highest bidder," end quote. The shootings began December 4th when 8 rounds were fired into the home of, and I'm going to mispronounce this, I've already mispronounced, Bernalillo County Commissioner Adrian Barboa. Days later, State Representative Javier Martinez's home was targeted. On December 11th, more than a dozen rounds were fired into the home of Bernalillo County Commissioner Debbie O'Malley, police said. The final related shooting, targeting State Senator Linda Lopez's home, unfolded in the midnight hour of January 3rd. Police said more than a dozen shots were fired, including 3 that Lopez said passed through the bedroom of her sleeping 10-year-old daughter. The witness said one of the men told the shooters to aim above the home's windows to avoid striking anyone inside. Pena wanted them to shoot lower. Pena's insistence that the men be more aggressive made the other participants uneasy. Quote, "since they knew that doing so would likely end in death or injury," said the witness, who faces criminal charges and has asked for leniency. Authorities said no such promises have been made in regards to the leniency. The witness said Pena was there at the Lopez shooting, quote, "to ensure better target acquisition," end quote. The witness said Pena's gun jammed and did not fire correctly, but one of the other men fired multiple rounds from a Glock pistol into the Lopez home. An appointed public defender for Pena did not immediately return messages seeking comment. And the shooting spree was, quote, "scary, not just from my personal perspective, but the fact that our democratic process was believed so much in, that our country was founded on, would be targeted in that way," said Martinez. This lawmaker's 10-year-old daughter was sleeping in her bed. And she said she woke up because she felt what she described as sand in her mouth. It was the particles of drywall from the bullet ripping through her walls that fell down onto her bed while she was sleeping, some landing in her mouth. She had drywall fragments in her mouth because bullets ripped through her bedroom. This is who the Republican Party put forth for this seat. This is who the Republican Party backed. Yeah, they're doing the right thing now. This is who they backed. He already had a criminal past here. These fucking people are nuts. They're fucking insane. Listen, if you're listening to this podcast or you're watching the video version of it and you're one of these election deniers, you're fucking insane. You got to fucking screw loose. You need to seek professional medical help immediately. You got a fucking problem. This era of Trumpist election denying is quite possibly the most dangerous era of my lifetime. Excuse me. These sick fucks, they got to come down on these fucking assholes. They got to make an example of this cocksucker. This is fucking nuts, man. This is fucking crazy. You lost an election, so you shoot up the homes of Democratic lawmakers? Dude, you almost killed a 10-year-old girl. But that's the problem with these fucks these days, right? These Republicans in 2023, they don't fucking care. They don't fucking care who they hurt. They don't fucking care what they destroy. They don't fucking care what they undermine. They don't fucking care whose lives are in danger. They don't fucking care. If it's not them, they don't fucking care. Sometimes even when it is them, they don't fucking care. Sometimes even when their livelihood is on the line, they still don't fucking care. And that's the part that really fucks with my head, right? Case in point, the last story I have for you this week. We have now reached the debt ceiling. We're back to this fucking spot. And now, a lot of fucking people asking, all right, so what the hell is this? I keep hearing every few years about the debt ceiling and the debt limit and the debt ceiling and the debt limit. What the fuck is it? So we're going to discuss what the debt ceiling is and why what the GOP is doing is dangerous, okay? We'll try to break down for people what this is, okay? Established by Congress, the debt ceiling is the maximum amount of federal government is allowed to borrow to finance obligations the lawmakers and presidents have already approved, since the government runs budget deficits and the revenue it collects is not sufficient. Let me just pause right there. What that means is, throughout the course of the year, we operated off of a budget that says we're going to spend X. But we wound up spending much more. We wound up spending Y. And so, throughout the course of the year, the lawmakers, the powers that be, borrowed the difference in order to pay the bills. Now it's time to agree to pay that bill. Does that make sense? You put it on the card, and now the credit card bill has come in the mail. Yes, it is quite that simple. But the Republicans don't seem to get what happens if you don't pay your bills. So I go on. Increasing the cap does not authorize any new spending. The debt ceiling, which currently stands at 31.4 trillion, was created more than a century ago and has been modified more than 100 times since World War II. Though it was originally designed to make it easier for the federal government to borrow, the limit has become a way for Congress to restrict the growth of borrowing, turning it into a political football in recent decades. Still, fears of a default have prompted lawmakers to pass legislation to raise or suspend the ceiling every time, most recently in December of 2021. In letters to House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, Yellen wrote that she expects the extraordinary measures to last until early June, though she noted there is considerable uncertainty around that forecast. Who is Janet Yellen? Well, she's our treasurer, but she's the one that basically gives Congress the heads up. Hey, this is not good. You want to do it this way, otherwise we're going to be in some trouble, and I'm going to have to tap dance in order to get shit paid. Once these measures and cash on hand are exhausted, the debt ceiling crisis would start having very real impacts. If the government is no longer able to borrow, it would not have enough money to pay all of its bills in full on time, including interest on the national debt. So, it would likely have to temporarily delay payments or default on some of its commitments, potentially affecting Social Security payments, veterans benefits, and federal employees' salaries, among others. But no one knows exactly how Treasury would handle the situation, since it has never happened. We've never defaulted on our bills. We've never said we're not going to pay this. This batch of Republicans is threatening to do that very thing. A default would also wreak havoc on the U.S. economy and the global financial markets, as well as raise borrowing costs. Even the threat of one in 2011 caused the only credit rating downgrade in the history of this nation. These moves are mainly behind-the-scenes accounting maneuvers. Treasury secretaries are authorized by Congress to take several types of extraordinary measures to prevent the default, giving lawmakers more time to increase or suspend the limit. Secretaries in both Democratic and Republican administrations have taken such steps. In time, Yellen anticipates selling existing investments, suspending investments of civil service retirement and disability fund, and postal service retiree health benefits. Also, she is suspending the investments of a government securities fund of the Federal Employees Retirement System Thrift Savings Plan. These funds are invested in special issue Treasury securities, which count against the debt limit. Yellen's actions would reduce the amount of outstanding debt subject to the limit of temporarily provide the agency with additional capacity to continue to finance the federal government's operations. Excuse me. I know I'm getting into the weeds. I didn't, like I normally do for you, I didn't read from any one news agency. These are my notes put together, so I can tell while I'm reading this aloud that I am getting a little bit down into the weeds of the details. Sorry, I'm a nerd when it comes to this shit. Let me be more simplified than the notes that I created for myself. Not raising the debt limit, not raising the debt ceiling, would literally be like you and I not paying our credit card bills, not paying our mortgage, not paying our car notes, not paying the bills we've already incurred throughout the course of the year. The federal government goes out and borrows a bunch of money to pay all the bills that it's got to pay because it doesn't bring in enough tax revenue. We don't have a balanced budget. We haven't had a balanced budget since Bill Clinton. Then it comes time to say, all right, we're gonna pay that bill. We're gonna make good on that bill. And the Republicans are saying we shouldn't. Now, the reason that the Republicans are saying we shouldn't is because they want to use it as a bargaining chip. They want to use it as a tool in order to get the government to spend less money. right? They want to cut spending out of the federal government. So what they want to do is they want to say, listen, we're not going to raise the debt ceiling, which means we're going to default on the bills that we've already incurred, unless you agree to give us a budget that cuts X amount of money out of the spending. Now, you'll notice in all of the negotiations that you're going to see on TV that none of them are going to agree to cut spending to the defense budget, right? We're just under $900 billion for the year on defense. You watch when the next budget round comes out, that number will go up. There will be an increase in defense spending. But they'll take that money from education. They'll take that money from grants going to colleges. They'll take that money from any social service programs they can possibly pick apart. They'll dig deep into the Social Security Trust Fund, which, keep in mind, is not part of the general budget. The Social Security Trust Fund is completely and utterly separate from the U.S. budget and is meant to be a self-sustaining entity, which it can be if the fucking government stops borrowing from it. And that goes for both sides. Part of the reason Bill Clinton was able to balance the budget when he was in office is he worked with the Republican Congress to finagle the numbers in such a manner that they were going to continue to borrow from Social Security, which was started years before Bill Clinton came along. But they were going to do so less and less and less each year until they got to the certain point in tax revenue where the tables turned and we were going to bring in more money than we were spending. They were going to be able to pay back what they borrowed from the Social Security Trust Fund and continue to run a balanced book if they just followed that game plan. Of course, the Bush tax cuts and the two wars he got us into blew a massive hole into that. But that's where we are right now. The Republicans in the House of Representatives are threatening to not pay the bills that we've already incurred. They're threatening to not pay our credit card bill. And you can't do that. You cannot do that and expect to not crash the global economy. It's going to have a ripple effect around the world. And they just don't get it. They don't fucking care because they want to go back to their constituents and claim that they got the W. Look, we got them to spend less money. They're playing with our economic livelihood. They're playing with the very thing that makes the United States an economic powerhouse, our good faith. The fact that we have always been and should always be good for it. Doing this would mean that we're not, for the first time in the history of our country. Folks, elections have consequences. The Democrats would not be fucking with this. They would raise the debt ceiling limit and they would continue on with the business of governing, not the Republicans. So if you're listening to this podcast and you live in a Republican district, get a hold of your member of Congress and tell them that you want them to raise the debt ceiling clean. No strings attached. Do not use it as a bargaining chip. Do not use it as a ploy. President Biden has already said he will not negotiate on the spending limit. We've already incurred this debt. We are going to raise the debt limit to pay these bills, and we're not going to attach anything to the negotiations. Period. End of fucking story. Hold to that, Democrats, and let's get a few Republicans to get on board. Remember, they need 218 to get anything. They have 222. Let's make sure that we could flip enough Republicans, just a handful of them, to be on our side to say, hey, we can't allow our debt to go belly up like this. And I believe that there are more than just a handful. There are enough quote-unquote moderate Republicans that are going to see that this is very, very bad. But this is what the crazies want to do. Okay? They want to not pay our bills, and then, what did we discuss earlier? Starve the IRS, implement a 23% sales tax on you and I, and then just do away with that down the road. This is fucking anarchy, folks. This is chaos. This is not how you run a government. This is not how you govern a nation. This is absolute fucking insanity. And elections have consequences. This is why you don't fucking vote for Republicans. Period. I don't even know what to say anymore, guys. These fucking Republicans have lost their goddamn mind. And it's going to be entertaining as fuck to watch, but it's going to be entertaining because we got the Senate and the White House. So none of their crazy batshit stuff can actually get through the Senate and the House. This is a House thing. They got to figure out the debt ceiling thing. We got to do better next time. We can't let these fucks control one of these chambers of Congress. This is fucking nuts. But throw it on the fucking pile of shit we can use in 2024 in political ads as we attempt to get the House of Representatives back into Democratic hands. Remember, the House controls the purse strings. That's who controls the money. That's who funds the government. You really want Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz making all the decisions concerning how we fund our government? Fuck no. Fuck no. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure your family members are registered to vote. You know some Gen Zers that are coming of voting age between now and 2024? Make a plan. Put it in your calendar. Take them to get them registered to vote. Sit down with them. Teach them how to register to vote so that when they turn 18, they can register and actually get out there and vote. Make a plan to take them voting on Election Day. Make sure we get as many Gen Zers out there as humanly possible, and let's set this thing straight again, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for you this week. Here's to hoping my football picks are good this weekend and the Tostitos and cheese are not stale. You know what I mean? All right. Tune in next week for another episode, and until then, as always, stay grateful. And that's how we do that. That's literally the end of that. So I will attempt to upload this video in the morning. It's Thursday now. I will attempt to upload this video on Friday morning when I upload the audio version of the podcast. Until then, get yourself some good sticky icky. Round your edges a little bit and prep yourself for the weekend, my friends. It's coming rapidly.